Hey, I'm Neutral. I'm an artist and designer, and I finished a sketchbook for the first time in 10 years. Welcome to the tour. I'll save my yapping and reflection for the very end, so let's just start with the book itself and the cover. This is an unbranded sketchbook I got in a 3-pack from Amazon like 5 years ago. It has a removable craft cover, which is pretty cool. I wish I took advantage of that more when I was decorating it, but that's alright. On the cover, I have an acrylic paint pen drawing of this little cat head guy. You'll see him several times in the sketchbook. He's just something I draw when I don't know what else to draw. This is a sticker I bought from an artist called Ren Coco. Here is a drawing of Red from Bomb Brush Cyberpunk. This is a little capybara sticker from a sticker sheet I had. And this is a Delicious in Dungeon sticker from an artist called Chepoli. So on the first page, we have the cat head guy again. I've been calling him, I didn't really have a name for him for a while, but recently I've decided to call him Funny Cat. So here's Funny Cat again playing some soccer. And here I wrote SKB01. Sketchbook 01. I started it in May and finished in September of this year. So on this page we have Geralt's silver sword from The Witcher. I actually have it here on my mouse pad as well. Fun fact about me, I feel like I'm gonna say that a lot in this video, but fun fact about me, I really love The Witcher. I played The Witcher 2 first. I got it free randomly on Xbox Live in like 2014 or something like that, and I was obsessed with it. Here we got a knight, then there's an elf here, and Funny Cat again. This here is my Final Fantasy XIV character, my Warrior of Light. He is Naora, and actually on the inside cover I had a little old sticker I did of him as well. Then here I was designing a jester themed rogue character for a D&D one-shot I wanted to run. It didn't end up happening at the time, but I still want to try that in the future. And I like the concept, but this design I feel like is too symmetrical. I'd like to revisit it and make it a bit more asymmetrical and interesting. Here's a headless torso. I was sketching an idea I had that kind of go into more on the next page, but I was really fighting the supplies, so it didn't really turn out, but something I want to try again on. And then here's a list of words I was writing down. I can no longer remember what I was using that for, but it was probably some OC stuff. And here is the drawing I was talking about. I was using some water-based markers. This paper really does not like them, so it got all patchy and weird, and I don't really like how that turned out at all. But this was kind of a concept sketch for an OC I was coming up with. She's a sorceress for, I have like a fantasy world build. Who doesn't, right? Yeah, so I have a bunch of characters for that. She's one of them. And this was kind of my first time drawing her. You'll see her a few more times in the sketchbook as I kind of try to nail down her concept. And these are her hands. They're kind of stained black with magic ash, I guess you could say, from casting magic. And then here's a little bunny. Fun fact again, I used to have a pet bunny. This is probably the first page where I was kind of hitting my stride with making sketching a habit, because the first few pages there was some time in between those and this one, and then from this point on I was kind of able to go much quicker and just keep sketching and really just have fun with it and not care too much about how things turn out. So here I have written Technica pens are kind of hard to use because I was getting used to, or I was trying out this pen that I've had for a while. This one, Pentel Arts Hybrid Technica. I've heard really good things about them, but I could never get used to it because the way the ink flows is really different from what I'm used to in pens somehow. But I figured out as I went on with it, drawing faces for some reason gave me trouble, but drawing like other things I cared less how they turned out, I guess. I had fun with these when I did that. And these are just some stamps I had. I was trying them out. Smears with marker. I wrote that because the Technica pen smeared when I added marker to it. And here I was watching my brother play Sonic Colors. These are a couple of the wisps from that, but I was drawing them kind of from memory because they weren't on screen. So this is the orange one and this is the cyan one. Here is Lewis Hamilton, the F1 driver. Another fun fact about me, I'm really into F1. I especially like McLaren and Mercedes, in particular their current lineups of Lando and Oscar and George and Kimi. And I actually have this little Lego Mercedes F1 car on my desk that I love so much. It's so fun. But yep, Lewis Hamilton, just a photo study. And here I wrote Hamis Lewilton. Here we have some Yuri. Yushtola and Zero from Final Fantasy XIV. And I don't really get big into shipping in the media I like. When I like a ship, it just has to like strike me in some way. And this one did. I just like the dark, vampiric vibes of it all, I guess. This is one of the missiles from Sonic Colors while I was still watching my brother play that. And then he was playing Bomb Rush Cyberfunk after that, so I drew Red a few times. I really like the shape of his head, so that's something that I started drawing over and over because it's just so fun to me. Here's Red again a couple times. On this one, I was trying out using ink to fill in the shadow areas, and whenever I try to do that, I kind of put the shadows in the wrong place, or I keep mixing up the light source, and so I'll put shadows where they're not supposed to be, and then it ends up looking really off. That's something I want to practice more, but what I really like to do instead is just add little bits of thicker line in kind of random areas as I go, and that's just a really pleasing process to me. I find it aesthetically pleasing, I guess. You can see it on all these drawings here. These are bunnies drawn from reference, except for that one. And yeah, you can see I did kind of the same thing. That's just something I like to do a lot, especially when I draw traditional. It's just fun. Funny cat again. In two places. Here he says meow. Here's a bunny that says confound it all. A piece of meat, cartoon meat. And this is my OC Jade. He's a really old OC of mine, and he's holding grocery bags, and I wrote me when I go get groceries. But yeah, Jade is part of a friend group. I made like a friend group of 8 queer men, and they just have a bunch of shenanigans, and I made them in like 2015, 16, but in 2020 or 2021, around that time, I decided to revamp them because I hadn't been drawing them in a couple years, but I wanted to revisit their designs, update them a bit, and so since then I've been drawing them a bit more, and that's been fun, returning to them. Here I was drawing some guys with antlers, sort of how tieflings have horns. It was for my fantasy world build. I don't know if they're satyrs or just antler having people, not sure. I haven't fleshed that out much, but I like the concept and I like this little face, little kind of bashful face. Here's my Warrior of Light again. I wanted to draw him wearing, like, you know when metalheads will wear those tight black shirts and the cuffs and the jeans and whatnot. Fun fact, I really like metal, especially prog metal, and Unprocessed is my favorite band. If you watch my Design With Me video where I made the cyberpunk mirror stickers, there's some footage from an Unprocessed concert that I went to in there. Really love their music. Here's a taco. This is Link from Legend of Zelda in kind of a weird style. Here it just says wow, and funny cat again. I realized I didn't color in his ankles, but would his ankles be the same color as his head and his tail? Or is he like a human wearing a mascot suit? I need to figure him out. Here I drew Sphene from Final Fantasy XIV from Dawn Trail, and I drew this shortly after I finished the patch where this version of her is introduced. I don't know if she's like a character I really like, but I find her really interesting. Here I was just sketching some branches and leaves, and we've got Funny Cat again, some more F1 stuff. This was referenced from Lando's car actually. There's his little head in there. Not that it looks anything like him. Here I was thinking about creatures, what sort of creatures would be in my fantasy world build, and I drew this little guy who I love. He's like an imp or something, and this is a beholder I drew from a D&D illustration, referencing a D&D illustration. I messed up the proportions in several places, but this is probably the most dragon looking dragon I've ever drawn. I'd like to practice some more. And over here I was thinking about all the different physical features a dragon might have, tail shapes, spikes, ridges, fins, all of that. This is that eye guy again. Some name options, I haven't decided what. I kind of like all of them. And down here I wrote Tombow ABT 055 because I wanted to remember what pen that was. Here it is. I use it a lot, so all the text has rubbed off, but this is a Tombow pen. I have come to really love sketching with it and using it for like pops of color. I don't know. Yellow isn't usually a color I gravitate to a lot. Fun fact, my favorite color is red, but I've gotten more into all three primary colors, and yellow has become a lot of fun for me to sketch with. Here is one day I decided I wanted to draw from, I have one of the Endwalker art books, and I decided I wanted to draw some creatures and things from that. So I don't remember if these guys were named in the book, but they're the people from the Dead Ends dungeon. More Endwalker stuff, a Grebuloth. This thing, I don't remember what it was called, but I think it's from the Smileton dungeon. Here's a Luna Tender, Aya, and back here it just says Endwalker. I was also listening to the Endwalker soundtrack at the time, and the Nautilus Knoweth came on, so I drew the shell and wrote Knoweth under. This sword is also from the Endwalker art book, and then I just drew some fruit to fill in the space over here. Strawberry, kind of off-looking watermelon, and I think I was thinking about a persimmon when I drew this, but it really just looks like a tomato, so we'll say it's a tomato. Maybe it was supposed to be a tomato because then they would all be red kind of fruits. We'll go with that. And this page, so over here I was just sketching some Halloween stuff. I really like fall time Halloween, even though winter is actually my favorite season. Halloween and fall, it just has the best vibes. But so a witch hat and a pumpkin, and I was using a mild liner, one of these but different color obviously, and it was pretty dried out, so it looks patchy and horrible, but that's okay. And then over here, I wanted to draw a horse head from reference. And while I was doing that, me and my sib were watching a video where the creator was making t-shirts with phrases on it, and I was like, separation of church and state would go hard on a t-shirt, so I should write that down and remember it. And then so I wrote it on the page I was drawing on, and this page altogether is so funny to me. Maybe I should put the whole thing on a t-shirt, and it won't make much sense, but it'll make me laugh. This is one of my friend's cats I drew from a photo. And then here is another OC. This is Kane. He is part of Jade's friend group. This is a sketch of him finding a little cat on the street, and he's like a really broody, hard kind of guy. So I feel like if he found a little kitten, it would change him. It would save his life. Two rabbits, Big Head and Lil Man. And over here I was testing out some of my Sibs pens. I just blocked out my Sibs name over here. This is Lamy Safari. This was a Pilot brush pen, and this was a Kuretake brush pen. Here we got the eye guy again. Here I was drawing some cartoon teeth, and I could not remember what they look like. I don't know why that came to mind, but it did. And this is, I think, a radish or a thick carrot. This is another OC. I haven't decided how I want to pronounce his name yet, but he is an elf and he is a knight. This is a seagull. It's the emblem of the kingdom where he lives. This is a sketch of Azam. If you know Final Fantasy XIV, you know all the Azam stuff. I was listening to the Abstract of a Planet in Resolve by Idola and Idola, either way. These are lyrics from that. I was getting Azam ideas while listening to that, so I drew this sketch for what I want to be a bigger illustration someday. On this next page was another idea, but I did not finish the sketch. The idea was Azam again, but he was gonna have these like shards breaking off, and inside the shards would be drawn actual shards of him. Again, if you know Final Fantasy XIV, you know what all that means, but I didn't end up finishing the sketch, but I definitely want to come back to that idea. Here I was just drawing some random stuff that came to mind. This girl with really long hair, a bag, a hammer, and a plate of food. This is, if you've seen that video of it's called a Hyrax, and he's in the hole and he's like yelling at the camera, he's like, yeah, that's what that is. Here I was just sketching some fruits with acrylic paint pens, and I really like the textures in this orange over here. On this side, I was doing some thumbnails for illustrations that I had in mind where, you know, it's kind of about the state of the world. It really like just blows my mind how it feels like society is on the verge of collapse, yet we're still expected to go about our days like nothing's going on. So this guy's walking to work and there's like a giant fire behind him and he's not acknowledging it. This girl's taking a selfie. The fire's like about to get her. It makes me feel insane the way life has been. And so just a random apple. Here is Jade again. This is what he looks like in canon. This is edgy of me, but this is him in a AU or maybe a later timeline where he and his friends live in like a futuristic Earth kind of setting, and this is him in the dystopian timeline, cyberpunk dystopia kind of thing, and this is him in a later timeline which is post-apocalyptic, you know, dystopia, apocalypse, post-apocalypse. I thought it was fun to kind of ponder how he would be in all those different scenarios. And here he's doing like the phone symbol with his hand because it has to do with, he's a part of a resistance group in this AU, and there's more of that on the next page. Yeah, so the call is coming from inside the house is something he would have like written on a social media bait post or something to alert the government that he had infiltrated, and that kind of became the catchphrase and the symbol, I guess, of the resistance group he's a part of. But yep, here's Jade again. This is Funny Cat again. I drew him a little off. And this is my D&D character, my first D&D character. His name is Davarius, and he's a half-elf wizard. And he somehow survived the death house in Curse of Strahd, basically unscathed. He and I got super lucky. So here's a little chibi of him and his familiar, which is currently an owl, and him with his tome and his quill. This is a little cameo brooch he wears around his neck, and these are his glasses. I have like a guilty pleasure habit of watching like drama videos for situations that I know nothing about or have nothing to do with me. So at the bottom here I was watching a book talk drama video, I think it was, and this is Book Chats with Shelly, I think, and I liked the shape of her glasses, so I just drew her eyes in here, and I drew it kind of low, so I was like, okay, I'll just fill in the other space next time I watch a video of someone wearing glasses. So this is Jammy Dodger. Here I was drawing some foxes from references. This one I drew the head a little too big for my liking, and you might have noticed up until this point that a lot of my sketches are done in pen. That's something I picked up over time. It's like really fun to draw with pen because the mistakes that you can't fix are part of the charm and part of the process, and so even though this head is too big, I still think it's like fun. I had fun drawing it still, and most of the sketches throughout the sketchbook are done with some combination of these three supplies. This is a big round stick grip, really cheap pen. I love drawing with these because you get a lot of range and values. These guys, for example, were done with the Bic pen. This page and probably most others was done with my favorite pen, which is this Uni Jetstream 3. It has black, blue, and red ink. I just love the way this works, and it's so fun to sketch with. And for a lot of the heavier areas I like to throw in, I usually use this Kuretake Fudego Kochi. I said that so badly, but that's okay. Brush pen. Has a little flexible nib. And yeah, it's a lot of fun to use as well. Here, I drew the mom thing before I decided I wanted to draw a bunch of explosions, so I added some coming off it to kind of incorporate it, but I don't know why I drew this, but I realized I didn't have a light enough pen to fill it in, so I used that little cat stamp. But yeah, I wanted to draw some explosions based on like video game VFX. So that's what all this is, and that's really fun. I want to get more into drawing those kind of abstract or non-figurative kind of things, like really organic shapes. It's a lot of fun. Here I drew a Viera. I was indeed thinking about the Evanescence Fallen album artwork when I drew that. Here is Black Cat Yana from Final Fantasy XIV as well. I really like her character. I don't really like how I drew her here, but yeah, I want to draw her again. She's fun. Funny Cat again, some more explosion type things. Here's a comet, and there's my wall again. He isn't wearing a shirt because I forgot, but he can have his boobs out as a treat. I actually really like this sketch, how loose and light it is. I tend to kind of use a lot of lines when I'm sketching because I'm just kind of idly mark making, and then I find the lines I like, and it's kind of heavy and scratchy. But this one, I like how there's only a few lines suggesting like the shape of his body, and that happens more when I think actively while I draw, which is something I'd like to practice more. Here's some unicorns. In my fantasy world build thing, unicorns and dragons are kind of like deities, and I figured deities would have different forms, and so these are more humanoid forms that they might take on. This is an OC named Teeny. She's a circus performer, I guess you could say. I just doodled this kind of off the dome, and then I ended up really liking her design, and I decided to keep her and make her into an OC. So she is also in the fantasy world build. She is an elf. This is her performing with some hoops. Here's a close-up of Teeny's face. I feel like the face doesn't look like how I picture her in my mind, so, but yep, there she is. And then here I drew an IKEA Djungelskog and a little cat. Just a couple of really cute little guys. I'm honestly like a hard ass, but I have a soft spot for cute animals. Here's Teeny again. This is probably my favorite drawing I've done of her. I like the body type I gave her here, and I drew this cake afterwards and it looked like she was standing on the plate, so I decided to embrace that and kind of style it like it's an advertisement or something, and I think it's pretty cute. Here's a broody kind of lady and Teeny, but really teeny. Some fire, and this is a staff bot from Security Breach, I think. This here is a self-portrait. I was breaking out and wearing pimple stickers, and I felt like drawing that. And then here's Jade again, having a fall time pumpkin spice latte moment. This is another drawing of that sorceress lady from the beginning of the book. Here, her hair is a little too fluffy and her face looks a little too young, I guess, compared to how I was picturing her, but I still really like this sketch. Here I was just doodling whatever, clouds and a bunny. Nothing's showing here, but I'm gonna cover it up just to be safe. But these are two more OCs from Jade's friend group. This is Z and this is Elliot. So it's this whole scenario I came up with for some reason where, so Elliot's a gamer and his gamer bros were like teasing him saying he couldn't pull a cat girl, and he can't, but he's friends with Z, who at any given opportunity would love to dress like a cat girl. So he asks Z to pretend to be his cat girl, and Z gets way too into it. And here I drew him with 4 ears because he usually wears his hair tucked behind his ear, but then I realized I drew the cat ears too, and I was like, oh, he has 4 ears, and that was like confusing to me, so I started drawing the hair over the ears for the rest of these. And here he is holding a Elliot body pillow. Again, nothing's really showing under here, but Z is not wearing clothes. Here's Elliot tormented by Catgirl and a little chibi Z. This is just 1, 2, 3, 4 in German, but I wrote it because I was listening to, I think it's called Loveless by Luna C. Fun fact, again, I studied German in college for 2 years, but I was always way better at reading it and writing it than speaking it, so I don't really consider myself a German speaker. I want to get back into studying it so I don't forget everything I learned. This is another OC from Jade's friend group. We have like 5 out of 8 in this sketchbook. This is Eden, and Eden is wearing some stompy boots. I really like the way detailed sketches or detailed drawings of shoes look, but whenever I draw shoes, I kind of lose patience and don't include enough detail, and so that's something I want to practice. Here's some random objects: shorts, an egg, and a tree branch. I drew Byleth and Sothis here because I was watching my sib play Three Houses. Here's Teeny again. I drew a bunch of cartoon stakes to fill in the space. This is Z again. They're wearing like a casino worker outfit, I guess. There's a little Spider-Man head and then another cat. This is the sorceress again. I keep forgetting I gave her a name. Her name is Videra. This is Videra again. Her hair here is a lot closer to how I picture it, like more limp and scraggly looking. And I associate her with clocks and like time. So I wanted to design a staff or a weapon for her that was inspired by clock hands. So that's my first attempt at that. And the dress I drew her in, this is not quite the silhouette that I picked her for her. So over here, my Sib and I were brainstorming an OC thing. I can't remember the premise, but it's really inspired by like that edgy kind of old anime, like angels and demons anime vibe. So these are some character ideas for that kind of thing. Here's Funny Cat again, and then the little imp thing. And this guy is also from that same OC thing. These were kind of my first pass at him, and this was the second. He's supposed to be more emo than tech, where I didn't quite finish the design. I should come back and give it another go. A couple of unicorns, running one, and then a carousel horse type of thing. This, if you watch Bunny Maloney, please tell me in the comments, because it feels like a fever dream. I know it's real, but it feels like something I hallucinated. Anyways, I remembered it randomly one day, and I was thinking about Jean-Francois, and he looks so freaky, and I just wanted to draw him. So this is Jean-Francois from Bunny Maloney. These are a couple of gems. I messed up the reflections, especially on this one. I want to practice drawing reflective surfaces some more. This is just some random girl. I had her hand empty and I asked my Sib what she should be holding, and my Sib said a chicken. So there is a chicken. A little baby cat head. This is Teeny, and some cherries. So I was listening to the audiobook for Annihilation, and I had like a really clear image of the characters in my head. And so this is the anthropologist, this is the psychologist, this is the surveyor, and this is the main character, the biologist. I think I got those names right. And yeah, this is how they looked in my head. This is that guy from the emo thing again, and some random objects. Here are two of my friend's cats drawn from reference. This is a sketch of a witch. I messed up around her head a bunch, so I just kept giving her bigger and bigger hair. Some cats. This one is screaming. Here's Jade again, holding a burger. I drew him like really wide. He's saying, "I love you as much as I love burgers." And I don't think I ever established as a character trait that he loves burgers, but I drew that anyway. And here's some cat heads from reference. And here I wrote, "We're still good," because I was watching Good Mythical Morning, the episode where they grill meat on random objects, I think it was. Here I drew a crying little star for some reason, and then Jungleskog again with a positive message. Here's Senshi. I love Senshi. A little capybara. Then a sandwich. Didn't know what to fill the sandwich with. My Sib said cats, so I drew Funny Cat. Here is Noctis from Final Fantasy 15. If you're watching this and you know of me from Twitter by any chance, it's kind of criminal that this is, I think, the only appearance of Final Fantasy 15 in this sketchbook, because Lord knows I love this little guy and his 3 boyfriends so much. But yeah, for some reason I didn't think to draw them much at all in here, but they're still living rent-free in my head, don't worry. Every day. Then a little dripping pizza. That's something I actually used to doodle a lot, or like the side of my school notes when I was a little kid. This is a photo study from a Pinterest picture done in colored pencil. Here's some more unicorns. I wanted to see if I could draw humanoid shapes doing horse poses, so I looked up some reference photos of horses and tried to interpret those poses in a more human body, and I think they turned out kind of interesting. And then here's just another unicorn head. More unicorns and some like floating planets and space stuff. I am not sure what the thought process was, but with unicorns being deities in my world build, there was something with that there. Here is one of my favorite sketches in here, and probably one of the most detailed. It's my Warrior of Light again and my siblings' Final Fantasy XIV character. They're wearing that really 2021 alt TikTok glamour that they recently released. I think it's so fun, and so I wanted to draw our guys wearing it. Here's Good Mythical Morning again. Link says it's 4:30 in the morning and Rhett says let's talk about that. And I wrote that because it was 4:30 in the morning when I was drawing this. Fun fact about me, I struggle with insomnia a lot, so I usually don't sleep before 2 a.m. on most nights, and 2 a.m. is pretty early for me. And here's some baby cats from reference. This is like the most precious picture I've ever seen. The little baby cat with the bottle is so cute. Here's the sorceress, Videra, again, wearing a veil, casting some magic. I picture her having kind of an uncanny way of carrying herself. I didn't exaggerate it enough here, but like she'd be standing in ways that looks like her back is broken kind of thing. She's a little like creepy and off. Here I wrote I'm not asleep because it was late. Might have been the same night that it was 4:30, but also because I was listening to Where I Belong by Anabsastry, and that's a lyric from that. Here's a plate of spaghetti. Fun fact about me, I don't like spaghetti, which is pretty silly because it's just pasta and sauce and maybe meatballs, but I love Italian food, but when it comes to red sauce, I get weirdly picky. There's some that I just hate, and usually when I have spaghetti, it's with the sauce that I don't like, so I usually avoid spaghetti. This is, I think she'll end up being another performer in Teeny's troupe. I just sketched this, and I ended up liking her design. Not so much the outfit, I'd like to change some things about that. This is the same elf character, the elf knight from before, except younger. He's from the same country as Teeny, and he used to be a performer as well, but a different kind. He would do like horse riding tricks and sword tricks and that kind of thing. Here's just some random stuff. A little guy. It says Pookie here because it's just a fun word. Little cat, a sticker, and some paper airplanes. There's more of those on the next page. I just really like the shape of paper airplanes, something I've been thinking about getting tattooed actually. And here's a cat again. There's some liquid, just flying liquid, done in the same way I was drawing those VFX earlier, and then a SpongeBob jellyfish. And now this is the last page, and to mirror the first page, I drew Funny Cat playing soccer again. He got a goal this time, and this is him taking a selfie for his Instagram story, I guess. And that's everything in the sketchbook. Now I'm gonna take some time to yap about it a little bit. I'll probably put it over top of me flipping through the entire sketchbook without my commentary, but so the last time I remember finishing a sketchbook was around the end of 2015 when I was in high school. I used to draw in sketchbooks all the time back then, but I started getting more into digital art around that time, and because of social media, I started leaning on digital as my kind of primary medium, but traditional art has always felt more relaxing and fun for the most part, so I hated that I kind of fell off it for several years. I've had several sketchbooks since graduating high school and through college and post-college and all of that, but I would usually get like 5 pages in and then be like, nah, I'm not feeling it anymore, I need a new one. Until this year which is when I kind of changed my approach. I just dug up a sketchbook that I had in my stuff for ages, which is the one you're seeing now, and I didn't treat it as a big deal or think about curating the sketches, making it look nice. I just let myself have fun with it and draw whatever I felt like in the moment. And it's been refreshing in a way, having things that I really like and things that are really silly in the same sketchbook. Reconnecting with sketchbooks is probably one of the most important things I've done recently. I've had a really turbulent year, and sketching has been one of the few things I've been able to fall back on during the hard times. There are many factors in my life that have kept me from being able to make like full-blown personal art this year, though I did manage to squeeze in like one at the beginning of the year. But I hate that because I have so many ideas, but it's been nice to just sit in the couch at the end of the day and sketch around for a bit, and I have kept it going. I already started my next sketchbook. Here it is. And this is how far I'm in, just a few pages. In this next one, I'm trying to put more emphasis on ideation, like exploring and refining ideas for OCs and world building and thumbnails for illustrations and that kind of thing, while also still allowing myself to play and just doodle whatever. And it's been fun so far. It has so many more pages. So many more. I suppose I can give a sneak peek. Let me see. Well, here's some more sketches of Videra, the sorceress. And here's some dragon people, similar to the unicorns. And that's about it. Big thanks to anyone who's watching. It feels really vulnerable to share footage of myself and my thoughts and my entire sketchbook rather than just posting one drawing with a bare bones caption. And being vulnerable makes me uncomfortable, but I promised my therapist that I would work on that. So I'm very appreciative to anyone who has stuck it out until this point. When I was a kid, I loved messing around and making silly little videos on Windows Movie Maker, and editing videos now has felt like a return to that. It's been a fun creative outlet and an interesting way to interact with my art and whatnot, and I really want to do it more often than once a year. That's something I'm committed to. But yeah, I suppose I'll do the YouTuber thing now and say leave a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you want to see my next one, whenever that will be, and take care. Or else.